Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. Now, following the wave of tribunal verdicts last week, the National Assembly Election Petition Tribunal sitting in Ikeja, Lagos, has ordered a supplementary election for the Eti-Osa House of Representatives seat. The tribunal ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to conduct a supplementary election in 32 polling units in the constituency within 90 days.
The tribunal agreed with the petitioners Olubankole Wellington of the People's Democratic Party PDP and Babajide Obanikoro of the All Progressives Congress APC that the election did not take place in about 40 polling units. Recall that in February, INEC declared Thaddeus Attah, candidate of the Labour Party LP, as winner of the Eti-Osa Federal Constituency seat. Joining us this morning is Olubankole Wellington, popularly known as Banky W. He's the candidate of the People's Democratic Party PDP in the 2023 National Assembly elections for Eti-Osa Federal Constituency. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Whilst we know that you probably had best expectations for how this will turn out, did you honestly believe that the results, the election tribunal was going to lean in this way, especially looking at the federal level and seeing how, things did turn out? Do you think maybe there could be some level of disappointment? And how did you react when you got the news of this?
Okay, so I'm thankful that the tribunal saw the need to basically assert that every vote deserves to be counted, every voice deserves to be heard, and the rules about how our electoral processes are played out are adhered to. So I'm thankful that they made that decision. Now, I'm obviously not in under any delusions that this also favors the candidate of the ruling party, because I suspect that if he came second, we may not be looking at a rerun. They may have just looked at the disqualification of or the qualification criteria of the candidate that came first. And that's the reality of the situation on ground. The truth is, I'm not in the ruling party, so I'm under no delusions that, things may not necessarily be set up to favor me. With that being said, though, I see it as a miracle. I see it as the hand of God. Somehow we've been given another chance to kind of make our voices heard as regards the representative seat in Eti-Osa general election, and we intend to do everything possible to take that chance. I'm very grateful. I said it before. I said I think it's a miracle, and when God is working with me, He always takes the scenic route. It's never so easy. Even in my primaries, it was the same thing. We went for the primaries. We had to do a rerun in that situation. So I really was. I would have been surprised if it was just a clean. I guess that's just God's pattern with me. And if you look throughout Scripture, it's really a thing where He kind of takes you through this wilderness season before He takes you to where He's trying to get you to. So I'm here for it. Again, I'm grateful that the courts ruled to give people a chance to participate in our elections. Shortly after the elections, it was pretty frustrating for a lot of voters in Eti-Osa specifically, because they felt like their constitutional rights were being taken away from them, and people gathered in the hundreds. We were outside of the collation center protesting to say, no, this is our election too, and we should have a say. So I'm glad that people get that chance, and the prayer now is that people actually come out in the 40 or so polling units where the election will be held. I pray that people come out and let their voices be heard.
All right. I just want to, walk back to something you mentioned now. You said, that you're not certain that it is set up to favor you in particular. Does that, shed some light as to how you see the way this is being played, as not necessarily, the law and the infringement of rights being checked out, but instead, politics being played to favor a particular candidate? Is this, basically what your thoughts are? And that if there wasn't that aspect, then we probably wouldn't be having this conversation about a rerun now.
Well, the reality is, politics is something that or the game of politics is something that people play at the highest levels, right? We can't position ourselves to be ignorant of that. However, I strongly believe that a democracy is only as good as the people that choose to get involved in it and choose to get involved in the fight to put us squarely on the path towards growth and development. And so that's what this is about for me. I believe leadership requires resilience. It requires the courage to stand for what you believe in, even if you're standing by yourself, even if you're standing up against the odds. And I strongly also believe that nothing is impossible. So whether it was set up to favor me or not is not the point. The point is we have been given another chance. No matter how slim it may look to anybody else, that is still a chance. And the reality is the analysis on ground is that those 40 polling units or thereabout where the election will be rerun is in the part of Eti-Osa where I'm particularly strong. It's spread out between the wards from Lekki Phase 1 to Shango Tedo, which is really where I've done the most community service work over the years, regardless of political office or not, is where people know me. It's where I've interfaced with my people in the grassroots. It's where I've spent a lot of my time just serving and engaging and interacting with people. So, whether they intended it to favor me or not, the point is that they gave me a fighting chance. And that's really all I need. I think that just the way God works with me, and the way that I've seen him work, throughout history and throughout scripture, it's always the most unlikely person. It's always the most difficult of circumstances that he comes through. And so we're really excited. I mean, we have thousands of volunteers on ground who, as soon as we heard the news, we said, hey, this is great. This is a chance to hopefully get this right. So, we'll give it everything we got. And I'm pretty confident that we'll pull off the upset. It will shock the world.
How important?
By God's grace.
Yes. How important would you say that the party's role is in all of this? And I ask this because when we look at who currently, Thaddeus Attah, a number of people did say that he rose to prominence in this election as a result of Mr. Peter Obi's popularity and the Labour Party obedient movement. Now, there are people who say that if you had been in a different party, maybe the results would have been different. Maybe the odds would have been different for you. Is this a position that you agree with?
So I think it's important to acknowledge the tsunami and the wave that His Excellency Peter Obi led across the nation. I mean, he definitely kind of turned our political system on its head. And, you have to tip your hat to that for somebody to be able to inspire, millions of young people to stand with him. I think that that's something that should be respected and should be acknowledged. The reality, though, what people may not realize is that prior to me even coming into the PDP, one of the people or some of the people that I was looking to work with in the PDP are, people like, Peter Obi and GRV. Gbadebo Rhodes Vivour is actually a good friend. I would almost even say a brother of mine. We have a very good friendship. We've had this for a few years. And actually, he was he was one of the people that sat me down and, he took me to lunch, bought me lunch and said, hey, listen, I know you want to serve, you want to change. Come, let's partner together. There are like minds like us in the People's Democratic Party. Let's work together. Let's redefine the future. We can do this thing. And so there was a whole plan, that I was adhering to by coming into the PDP to find like minds within the PDP to kind of collaborate towards changing our political system. Now, it's unfortunate, politics is still politics, right? And when things played out, I mean, I had to kind of fight tooth and nail to hold on to my ticket, thinking that, GRV and His Excellency Peter Obi and many of the other like minds that, that are still within the PDP till today, who I have to acknowledge and appreciate, people who have stood in my corner across the country and across the state of Lagos. But these were some of the people that I was coming into the PDP to partner with. But upon winning my own primaries, I think they saw the writing on the wall and just based on their own calculations, decided that they may not be able to be successful at the primaries that they had signed up for, and they decided to withdraw at the last minute. But the way the law is set up, it was already too late, because once you participate in a primaries, you can't, according to the Electoral Act, you can't drop that primaries and then move to another political party in the same season. You have to essentially back out of the race entirely and then come 4 years down the line. So politics is still politics, and it played out the way that it played out. But I strongly believe that God is still in control. And I believe that we're taking steps to where we need to be. I think we're getting more educated as a nation about what the law says and, about people, not just the parties, but the people.
Yeah.
And so, whether I could have joined another party is really a moot point, because the law would have prevented me from doing so. So, I am still very proud of the party that I ended up in. And I want to give a big, big acknowledgement to the leaders within the PDP at the national and the state level who stood with me, who fought with me. I mean, this is what being in a democracy is all about. No, there's no perfect political party. There's no perfect government. There's no perfect church. There's no perfect mosque. There's no family where you will not have a couple of people who, are not necessarily rowing in the same direction. So it's not about saying one place is entirely good and the other is entirely bad. It's about getting involved and participating in that process and finding enough like minds to do things the right way. And that's what we're trying to do. And by God's grace, I'm confident we'll be successful.
All right. We'll probably would, hopefully have time to talk about, what you plan to do and, how the previous person maybe didn't get it right. He, of course, is, trying to get re-elected again. But I want to talk about your views on the electoral process itself. It was marred with some level of violence, and tribalism, bigotry, the most dirty, filthy, things, came out, in the whole campaign and electoral period. INEC has also been criticized heavily for its failures during the electoral process. So I want you to share your thoughts on, how proud you were of that electoral process, and how INEC also carried out its responsibilities as the electoral body in Nigeria. Of course, in Eti-Osa and in every other local government here in Lagos.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll say a couple of things. One, I'll say that until we have a system that is properly set up to police itself, we have to be the ones to police it. And what that means is the office of the citizen is the most important office, in my view, in the nation. So we have to essentially almost have a shadow organization that is policing INEC and making sure that at every polling unit in every ward, the right thing is being done, and we are keeping track of records, and we're able to, as much as possible, hold it accountable for the actions and the decisions that INEC makes. We also have to find, the same way we have people that are sticking their necks out to run for political office, we need to have people that are going into the INEC space, the electoral body space, the non-governmental organization space. We need good people and like minds in there as well, so that we start to I don't want to use the word drain the swamp, but we start to ensure that at every level, whether it's on the electoral body side or in the candidates running for office side, the like minds, the right thinking people are getting involved in the political process. To criticize it is one thing, to get involved in it is a completely different thing. So we'd like to see a lot more of that happening. The other thing I think is that we definitely need some improvements, and I'll use Eti-Osa as an example. Most people are not aware, but the INEC office for this region in Eti-Osa is actually inside the local government office premises, which for me, starts to ask a lot of questions, because obviously the local government is completely staffed almost 100% by the ruling party. So how much independence can you really expect from INEC if for years they're sharing the same office space with members of the ruling party? So even if they do, kind of want to do the right thing, that's a lot of pressure to put people under, where their colleagues at work that they're seeing every day are able to influence them, and if they say, okay, everybody that's not staff, go out, but then they're still within the premises with members of the ruling party. So I think INEC, what we should be pushing for is true autonomy, true independence of INEC. They should be a completely different establishment. They should not be sharing office space with the members of the ruling party. I mean, until we get to the point where we can really look at INEC as an independent organization, we will continue to have these issues. Because even if, and I know that some of them and a lot of them are probably really good people, but it's a lot of pressure to put somebody in and expect them to do the right thing at every step of the way. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Some of this needs to be done from a policy perspective, and that's the work of the National Assembly to ensure that, yes, the Electoral Act was a step in the right direction, but what else can we do? What amendments can we put in place to ensure that the people who are in charge of overseeing our elections are as independent and autonomous as possible so that we don't have a repeat of these. At the end of the day, guys, the truth is, this thing is a process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? Kamala Harris is the first African-American, some would say colored, I don't know the term you want to use, female vice president of the United States. Prior to that, we had Barack Obama. But this is the same country that championed slavery, some years ago. But that's what a democracy is about. It's about taking steps in the right direction and people not giving up on it to say, you know what, we didn't get it this time, we're throwing in the towel. Rosa Parks refused to move to the back of the bus, and Martin Luther King marched and Malcolm X protested so that Barack Obama could become president, so that Kamala could become vice president. And I think that is the kind of
obviously
you have to have.
Yeah, there's still a ton, of work that needs to be done. If
There's
we're
a lot
talking
of
about
work to
fine-tuning
do. Yes,
what our
absolutely.
democratic processes and the leadership recruitment processes here in Nigeria. But there's also, perspective that I, would like that you quickly also chip on. In the elections, it really, at least for Lagos State, to a large extent felt like, a large number of people were done with the old and wanted something new, wanted something fresh. Rejected the PDP, rejected the APC, and anything that looked like them, their siblings back at home in the village, completely rejected. How does that make you feel, going into a rerun? And of course, seeing that that's really the mentality, I believe, to some extent, aside the fact that Thaddeus Attah, could have been popular to some extent, but it was really about rejecting these two other parties. How does that make you feel going, back for a rerun?
Well, I think the key now is for people to realize that you have to look at people and not just the party, because at the end of the day, it's the candidate that's the most important. Yes, I think you saw a wave sweep through, especially in Lagos, where people kind of rejected the two major political parties as far as Lagos is concerned. But I don't think that that's true for everybody, first of all. But I also think that the reason we saw that is because there was a strong belief in a person. So, in other words, if His Excellency Peter Obi leaves the Labour Party today, that wave follows him, right? I don't think anybody would say that people would stay with the Labour Party per se, and I'm not, trying to disparage the work of the Labour Party, but I'm saying that the wave really was about a person. And what I would like to see is people paying attention. The presidency race is a lot. It just attracts a lot more attention because it's the president of the country, and rightfully so. But I think people, the next step for us as a nation is to start to pay attention down the ballot. So in the same way that we get swept up in, the arguments about presidency and governors, if people would start to pay attention to say, okay, who are the people running for Senate? Who are the people running for House of Reps? Who are the people running for the state houses of assembly? Who's my local government chairman? Because the reality is those people have as much to do with the quality of life that you live, with the laws that govern the environment, the policies that are put in place for your business or your company or your career to thrive. The president doesn't make every single decision that affects your daily life. He does make some very important ones, but these other offices are important as well. So I would like to see that same mentality of saying, who are the people? Pay attention to people, because if you make a mistake and say, because of one person, I'm going with an entire party, you might be jumping from frying pan to fire if you don't actually know what those other people who
you've raised a very valid point, right? You've raised a very valid point about focusing on the people, and looking deeply into them, which leads me to my next and maybe final question. Let's look at Olubankole Wellington, the politician. What is your dream for Eti-Osa? This isn't your first go at this. You've tried before. You've gone through a number of hurdles, and I must applaud you for your journey and your tenacity at running for this. So tell us, what is it that drives you, and what is the Eti-Osa that you see?
And maybe also how the former representative got it wrong in the time that he was there.
So in terms of what drives me, I have a deep conviction to serve. I think it was something that was instilled in me from my parents from when I was a kid, and big big acknowledgement must go to my father and my mother for the values that they put inside of me, for the principles that I try to live my life by. So there's a deep conviction for me to serve people, to help, to be a part of the solution, to be a building block or a stepping stone for other people to come off and create something for themselves out of. And to the glory of God, that has been my testimony. In the movie business, in the music business, in my restaurant business, in all the ventures that I've gotten involved in, I've always served as a door opener for people. And I think that politics is the one way that you can scale up that kind of impact, where it's not just, I mean, for instance, in my restaurant, there's a young lad who I hired as a bistro chef, and he was earning minimum wage at the time. Today, he oversees our entire mainland operation of the restaurants. Multiple restaurants are under his purview, and in just 3 years or so. So I live for that kind of progress, and he's making 5 or 6 times what he made when he started. But to do it for a couple of young people or in specific sectors is not enough. We need people who are going into government with that mindset to open up opportunities for an entire generation of young people. We're setting up these millions of young people up for failure if we do not start to empower a generation. And what I mean is making improvements in education, in giving them access to technology, in upskilling them so that they are prepared for the jobs of tomorrow with the tools of today. So that's really my vision. One is to serve, is to be part of the solution, but it's also to open up opportunities for our people. And then as far as Eti-Osa is concerned, I think Eti-Osa, it's high time that we have transparent, accountable representation. It's high time that we have true representation, somebody who is going in there as a voice of the people, somebody who is going in there to serve the best interests of the people. And, you can talk about the challenges that we have in Eti-Osa from now till tomorrow. We have so many small business owners. I'm one of them in this constituency. And we face issues with multiple taxation. We face issues with the environment. We face issues with the education of our young people. We drive around and see so many young people who are either out of school or the education they are getting is not worth the paper that is being printed on. We have issues with healthcare. We still don't have a general hospital. I hear that they finally made plans to say that a general hospital is coming, but with the level, we're the highest taxed population, as far as I know, in the country. So we're not seeing the benefits of all of that. And,
so Ibrahim Obanikoro isn't getting it right, or didn't get it right in the time that he was in office?
Well, I'm sure he can speak for himself, and I think
from your perspective, would you give him a pass mark? Would you say that he did well, but you can do better, or would you say that he failed completely? And
from my perspective, I think that we can do a lot better. I think we can do a lot better in terms of just the bills and the motions that are being passed. His record is there for anybody who wants to go and check it out. But I think for the representative of Eti-Osa, there's so much more that can be accomplished than what we've seen thus far. And I know I don't like to talk about other people. I like to talk about myself. And what I know is that my entire life and career has existed because of the grace of God and the support of people. So when I do get into government, it will be because of those same people, the same people who have chosen to elect me. And if that happens, those are the people that I'll be accountable to. So, at the end of the day, it's up to God and it's up to our people. But I feel very, very confident that we'll be given a fair shot this time around. And I feel confident that we're going to succeed by the grace of God, to the glory of God. So we'll see what happens. But either way, I will always be here, always and forever here, serving, trying to be a part of the solution, trying to be a part of the change that we seek in Nigeria.
All right. Time will tell.
Thanks so much.
We hope that we can speak with you again before, or after the rerun. Thanks for stopping by, Olubankole Wellington. Great to see you.